Hi everybody, today we're doing a room called Opacity on Tryhackme, which is a boot to root machine that's rated easy on Tryhackme. So if we scroll down, we should be able to get a bit of a description. So we can see that it's an easy room that can help you in penetration testing and the learning process. There are two keys located on the machine, local.txt and proof.txt. And it says, and the hint is that there's several ways to perform an action, so always analyze the behavior of an application. So the first thing I want to do is open terminal. And I run a tool called Nmap with the -a tag, which stands for aggressive, and with the IP address of the machine. We can see we get 4 ports open, SSH, which is used for remote access, HTTP, which is like a website, and SMB, which is like a remote file share. Think of it like FTP. But the first thing I want to have a look at is the web server, as that seems like something we can have a look into straight away. So I'm going to do colon, and we're going to do :80, and we can see we get a login form. So the first thing I want to do is just type in admin. We can see that doesn't work, so I'm going to do Control U and go to the source, views page source, and if we have a look, we can see we get CSS, which isn't really anything that's normally interesting, and we just get some standard HTML with no service version or JavaScript. So one of the things that I want to do is grab this URL without the login.php, and I want to open another tab. And one thing I want to use is use a tool called GoBuster. If you don't have GoBuster, you can do sudo apt install GoBuster. But I already have it installed, so I'm going to do GoBuster the U for the URL. So the dir is for directory, and we're going to paste in the URL, which we got from here. Now, one of the first things we want to do is use the -w for the stands for word list, and we can do user share word list. This is where mine stored, and probably your word list is stored on Kali Linux by default. So I'm going to do dirbuster directory medium list. You can see 2.3 small.txt, and I'm going to press enter and let this run for a bit. You can see it's going up, and I'm going to let this run for a bit. So while that run, we might as well check for SQL injection. I want to make this a bit bigger. This is a bit too small for me, but it's a bit too big. So I'm going to type in SQL injection login bypass, and we'll see what comes up. This may take a little bit for the web page to show me something. So one thing I want to say that is a really good resource is a website called book.hacktricks. Hacktricks is a really good website, so I'm going to click on Hacktricks, and this normally includes an explanation of how the exploit or bypass works. And we can see right now we do get some SQL login commands, so I'm going to do this manually. I'm going to grab this one here, and I'm going to go back to the login page and paste. You can see this is this is a mini quote at the ends that will trigger an SQL injection, but we can see it doesn't seem like it's vulnerable to an SQL injection. We can try some more random ones and just see what happens, and we can see if anything works. So we can do admin. We could review the quest in Burp Suite and see if we get a error 500 returned response, but I'm going to go back to the terminal and see if we found anything else. We can see we get cloud showing, so I'm gonna copy this URL cloud, and I'm gonna end this scan, as this is what we need. The reason why I'm not continuing with the SQL injection is because I tried a bunch earlier on when I did this machine first time. I couldn't get anything. I also opened up my extension Foxy Proxy, and I opened up Burp Suite, and I'll try to look if there was anything. If there was any hint of an SQL injection, and there was nothing at all. So I'm going to press enter on this URL, and now I'm going to make this slightly smaller so you can see. So we can see a file upload personal cloud storage. So we can see we get a folder PNG. So we may be allowed to upload PNG files, and we can see we get nothing from the page source. So one thing I want to check for is if I do touch to create an image, and I'll name it image.png, as this is a PNG, and this most likely it's a file uploads cloud storage. So this is upload an image. So if I do HTTP the font isn't that good, but I'm going to put my IP address here for my Tryhackme VPN and put a port 8000 as the web server that I'll be creating is python3-m HTTP server. This will create a web server on my local Kali machine. And I want to do image.png. And we want to see if this will connect to my machine. And if it can, we may be able to upload a reverse shell. So we can see this is uploading. And let's see. We were able to get the request from our machine. So we know this web server can ping our machine, which is a pretty interesting response. So we so if we look here, we can see the image cannot be displayed because of errors. So since we are able to get an image from our machine, from the victim's server, we can try to get a reverse shell. So I'm going to type in rev shells for reverse shells and see what comes up. And if we let DuckDuckGo load for a second, we can see we get revshells.com. So we're going to click on revshells.com. This is an excellent resource for reverse shells. And I'm going to pretend I didn't put that in. And if I just type in for name and search, I'm going to type it in PHP. And we can see Pentest Monkey shows up straight away. One thing I want to say, this will need to match your IP address. You can see my IP address is right here, my OpenVPN IP address. And if I do 4848, this is the part I want to listen on. And if we scroll down all around here, we can see this is a PHP reverse shell. If I click copy, we'll be able to copy this. And if I do nano and rev.php, you can see that here, rev.php. And if I paste this in and save it, and if I do cat rev.php, we can see this has been saved. And we can see the IP address is right here. If we do Python, I'll create the web server on this side, so I don't need to keep creating it and taking it off. So we can see we created a file called rev.php. Let's see if we're able to upload rev.php. Will this be able to upload a reverse shell? If yes, this will be an easy win. So if you do rev.php, we can see nothing. It says please select an image. So there is some filtering going on. So if we just type it into Google PHP, well, if we do upload file bypass, so if you see if you can bypass a file upload, we can see we get payload all the things. Another great resource as well is payload all the things, but I want to use hack tricks again because I like using hack tricks. Payload all the things is also an excellent resource. So we can see we get some file extensions here. So we can see we can try to capitalize some letters and add in a valid extension before the execution of the previous one. So we could try this out and see if this runs. So if I copy the image, so if I copy revshells.php and if I paste this in, we can see if we get anything else. So if I cat PNG, we can see this is the reverse shell again. So let's get back on to the website and I'm going to put in this time rev.png.php. We're going to paste that in and press upload. We can see this didn't work at all as well. So there must be some filtering going on. So we can see it's getting the URL from this form here. So it's telling us to enter the URL manually. We can try one more, well, a couple more things. So we can, if you scroll up, you see it says it tricks the extension phraser by using we can do double quote or junk data or null bytes. This is a null byte, so pretty much it's telling the server this is valid data, this is invalid data. So if we copy this, we're getting this is a null byte, so it's just pretty much like a blank space. So if we do copy rev.php and we get this from the website hack tricks and we paste this in, we can see that we have it in our directory. So it's on our web server as well. So if you go back into the login form, if we do, and if we copy copy this one here with the null byte here, which is pretty much a blank space, I'm pretty sure, in PHP. So if we upload the image, we can see it's hanging on. And we can see that it is an embedded null byte. So you can see we're getting a bit of an error here. So you can see it's hanging on, which is a good sign. But one thing before I forget, we also want to put in 4848 for our PHP reverse shell. But we can see it's hanging, so it's not working at all. We're not getting anything. We could enter this again to try to reset it. But the only way to end this connection is to kill the web server and start it up again. So we're going to exit out. And we're going to re-upload this website. It may take a little bit. But if we go back to here, we could try some more null bypasses, but it doesn't really work at all. So one thing we could do is just try to use, instead of using a null byte, I had the idea to just use a space. So I'm going to copy this and put this in a new tab and exit out of here. So we got the web server back up. I just had to cancel the Python server again, as when I entered the URL again, it automatically tried to get the file again, which wasn't really a great thing. So if you do PHP, we try to use a null byte, which is a blank space. So why don't we try to use an actual blank space instead? Since we can't use a null byte injection, since we can't use a null byte in PHP, maybe we could just try something a bit more simple. So if we just do rev.php, instead of using a null byte, we just type in jpg. As we can see, this shouldn't be saved to your URL on a server. So if we just press upload image, we can see it's uploading, which is a great sign. So we know it is working. So if we go to the URL again, and we just remove JPG, and we press enter, we get not found. So you type in HTTP, and we type in rev, and we do JPG. Make sure this Python 3 web server is running, and if you press enter, we can see it has got it from us. So make sure our netcast listener is running as well. And since it has been done, let's go back and let's remove the JPG, as that won't be valid. Press enter, we can see it's hanging, and we see we get a shell as www.data, and if we do ID, we can see we're running as www.data. So if we do Python 3 tty shell, what this will do is give us a fully interactive shell. We need an interactive shell, as this isn't that nice to use. You can see it's showed up sideways, and if we do it on my host machine, we can see it's nicely laid out properly. That's because we're running a proper bin bash shell. So if we can see here, this is an excellent example. So if I just copy all of this, I'll zoom in as well so you guys can see. So if we copy from here, and I'm gonna try to copy it all, we paste it in, we can see we get a nicely set out shell that looks very similar to our own terminal. So we do ls, we can see we get a nice. So I'm gonna go to home, and if I go to sysadmin, that seems interesting. We can get into sysadmin, and we can see local.txt. But we can see we can't read local.txt, and we get a script directory. So if we go to scripts, we can see something interesting. If we do we get script.php. So if we do ls-la, we can't read script.php, which is kind of annoying. But let's just try anyway. We can see permission denied. And if you go to library, we can try to look at application. We can see a bunch of PHP files, which seems very interesting. But to save you a bit of time, I'm gonna say this is all a dead end. We could try to check www.data, but most of the PHP application is stored right here, and it's unlikely that this will have a config file, as it's a pretty basic web server. So the best guess for now is to run linpeas. If you don't have linpeas, I'm going to show you how to install it. If we do sudo apt install peas, this will install linpeas for you. But I've already installed it, so I'm just going to type in linpeas. We can see this take me to my linpeas directory, and if I do -3-m http server, we also need to forget. I also forgot to take this off, so make sure you turn this off, the Python server. Let's do it again. Do -3-m.http server. The file we want to carry over is linpeas.sh. So we want to wget http. Wget is a tool to carry over files from our host machine to our attacker's machine. So if we do 10.21.51.80 and port 8000, as if you scroll back down, we're listening on the port 8000. So we will do linpeas.sh. We can see it's downloaded. If you do ls, we can see it. One thing we'll need to do is do change mod. This will change the permissions to x, that stands for executable, and if we do linpeas.sh, and if we do // this will tell the system to run this command. If you don't know what linpeas is, it's a privilege escalation tool that will try to find us some misconfigurations which we can use to our advantage to gain further access on the machine. The big problem with linpeas is that it takes a while and it's very, very noisy. So if you're working on an actual machine with like an antivirus, it'll probably set error off, and an EDR and pretty much any security solution will detect linpeas, so you wouldn't really want to do it on an actual test. We can see if we look for Linux exploit suggester, we get a bunch of suggestions for exploits. We could try these out, and we know it's definitely vulnerable to this exploit. So we can see we may be running into in a container, and we can see we're running in AWS cloud. So we can see we get a bunch of AWS information, but that's pretty much out of scope, as we're not meant to be attacking AWS. So if we just keep scrolling down, we can see this is all just a bunch of noise and nothing of interest right here. This is most of the linpeas is just a bunch of noise. You just need, through experience, you'll know what to filter out. So let's just keep going down and down and down. We can see some interfaces. This is the IP address of the machine, and we can see, is there anything running locally? We get DNS, but 53 is DNS and 445 is the SMB server we saw earlier, and 319, and this is SSH, which we saw earlier, so it's nothing really that interesting. So we can see root, we got user root, we know that exists, and we can see some useful software. We'll keep scrolling down and we'll try to see if we get anything. We can see some archived. This may be interesting. We could look into this. And let's keep scrolling down. We can see we get some KeyPass files. Analyzing interesting KeyPass file. This caught my eye straight away. So KeyPass, we can see data set, and this looks interesting, as opt directory normally has nothing in it, and if it does, it's normally something interesting. So if you cd over to opt, if we do ls, we can see we get KeyPass data set. So this just makes me think of a database. If you do http server -3-m http server, we run that, and I'm going to cd and go to my downloads directory, and I'm going to remove all this. I'm going to press Y to remove it all, and if we wget, so if we do http, and we'll need the machine IP, So grab the machine IP and put it in. We want to put in port 8000, and let's get back to the machine, and what we want to grab should be here. So let's grab the database and let's drag it over to our machine. So if we try to cut it out, we get a bunch of binaries, so we can see our terminal's messed up. So I'm going to press clear to fix that. So if we Google how to open this, or just type in this file extension, how to open file on Linux, we should get some information shortly. We can see this is KeyPass. So we can see it's a KeyPass database. So if we type in how to open KeyPass database on Linux, so how to open KeyPass database on Linux, we can try to see what we get. So we can say KeyPass is an open source tool, and we could try to see the top one and see if we get anything. So we could try KeyPass blah blah blah. So we could try this one, but I'm gonna be looking around for a little bit and try to see something nice. So mastering KeyPass on Linux comprehensive guide. It's important to look at multiple sources, and this is the one that I want to look for. In Ubuntu Linux, we can see KeyPass, so we want to install this, so put this in. We can see installation of KeyPass on Linux. KeyPass is a database, so we know that much. Put in your password and run it, but I've already have KeyPass installed. So if you do KeyPass and the database, we just let this run, and we get it. We need to put in a password. We don't know the password. So we can use a tool like John the Ripper, or we can type in how to crack KeyPass password and just type that into Google and see what we can get. And we can see cracking KeyPass password database. So let's look at this. This seems very interesting. We want to crack a KeyPass password, but we have no idea. So we can see that this is just them downloading the file. And NVIDIA, we don't really care. I don't have a GPU anyway. So let's keep scrolling down. We get Hashcat. That's another tool we could use. But if we keep scrolling down, we want to use a tool called John the Ripper. And we can see KeyPass right here. KeyPass to John. John the Ripper is a tool which we can crack hashes. If you don't have John, you can do sudo apt install John, and this will install John the Ripper. I already have it installed. So if you do KeyPass, I think it's KeyPass to John. And if we do this database and we do hash.txt, and if we cut hash.txt, we get a hash. So if you do John word list rocku.txt and hash. The reason why this has happened is because I already have cracked the hash. Normally this would take a little while, but if I cd to John, if I cut my John pot, the reason why it's in my John pot is because I already cracked the hash, and it's just a bunch of numbers. So I'm just going to remove my John pot and go back to downloads. And if we run it again, we can see this is properly doing it this time, but I already have the password, so what's the point? So if I just go to KeyPass 2, and if we do database dataset, and I have the master password, at least I hope I do. Press OK. We can see day after week. Do you want to set them to the current recommend default value? Recommend this. Press yes. See what happens. And we get a username of sysadmin. And if we copy the password, and let's just paste it here, we get a password for the user. So let's just do SSH to sysadmin, since we know that's a username from the database. And if we copy the password, let's put it in. Well, not the password, the IP address, put that in. Press yes. And let's get the password again. Copy that in. Copy the password. Paste that in. Let's see what happens. We're in. And if you do ls-la, we get local.txt, and we can cut local.txt. We cutted it out. Now we see we get a scripts directory, and let's see if we can access script.php. And we can see this is running as root as well, since this is owned by root. And we can see this is like an automated script that runs. So back up the contents of this sysadmin folder, require once, and we can see we get a lib directory right here, backup.php, which is very interesting. So zips the folder up, successful. Then it removes a bunch of files, but the interesting part is that it runs a script. Well, it runs this file right here. So if we cd over, oops, not the password, if we just cd over. So let me cd scripts again, and cd over to lib. And if we cat backup.inc.php, we can see we just get a bunch of files. But if we do ls-la, we can see we can't really execute anything. So the smart thing to do is just to remove the file. Let's remove it, and yes, let's remove. If we do nano, we can see we can create a new file. So let's go back to revshells.com. So revshells, let's try to get a PHP reverse shell. So I'm going to remove this and type in PHP again. I want to change the port since I've already used 4848. And now what we want to do is go to copy and paste it in. And if we save it, if we cat backup.sh, we can see we get a reverse shell. First thing we want to do is set up a netcat listener, so netcat lmvp, and we want to do 1, 2, 3, 4. And this may take a little bit to run to get our reverse shell, but what's going to happen right now is if we go back and if we cat script.php, what's going to happen, it's going to run our backup script, and it's going to back it up and zip the file up, and it's going to remove files in this directory. And if we go back, we can see we get root. So if we do id, we're root, and we can cd to root.txt and ls. We can cat proof.txt, but I have done that, so we can see we can cut it out. So if you like this video, I have more videos, you can check them out. Other than that, I'll catch you in the next video.